Hi there, my name is Dr. Marissa May. In this video, we're going to focus on standard form of equations of lines. Now, I have done some previous videos on slope-intercept form and point-slope form, and I'll be sure to link them in the cards for you. But this one's going to focus mainly on standard form. So I want to look at that standard form that you see at the top of our list. Notice that x and y are on the same side of the equation, and a number, the C, a number is on the other side. So that's one of our criteria for standard form, is that X and Y be on the same side of the equation. Now we have some other criteria that I'm going to show you as we look at some examples. So let's take a look. In this example, we're going to look at the graph that we're given, and we're going to write an equation. First, I believe it's going to be easiest for us to write it in slope-intercept form, which is that y equals mx plus b form. And then I want to rearrange it so that it's in standard form. So let's first of all look at the graph, see if we can pick out the slope and the y-intercept. So first of all, I see that the graph touches the y-axis there at 7. So that tells me that the b, or the y-intercept here, is at 7. Now, then let's count our slope. And if you remember, our slope is represented by the letter m, and we can count it using the rise over the run formula. So from our point here on the y-axis, we would have to go down 1, 2. So because we went down, that's going to be a -2 for the rise. And then let's run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So our slope here is -2/5. So if I write that in slope-intercept form, that's our y equals mx plus b. We'll put the -2/5 in place of the m, and we'll put the 7 in place of the b. And this is our slope-intercept form. Now, if we want to get it into standard form, remember how I said that x and y have to be on the same side? So the first thing that we have to do to get into standard form is we're going to add this 2/5 x to both sides of the equation. Because remember, we need them to be on the same side. So I've got 2/5 x plus y equals, now look, -2/5 x plus 2/5 x, those cancel out and give me just 7. All right, so we've got x and y on one side. Now here's another criteria for standard form: no fractions. That's right. No decimals or fractions can be in standard form. Well, you may be looking at that and going, oh my goodness, we have a 2/5 in there. How do we get rid of it? Well, I'm going to show you a really easy strategy. And that is to take the denominator of the fraction, or if you have more than one fraction, you're going to have to take the common denominator and you're going to multiply it by every term in the equation. So I'm going to write it out for us so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to multiply 5 by every single thing in this equation to get rid of the fractions. Now, let me show you how that happens. So think of 5 as 5 over 1. Okay, now in fractions, we multiply across the top. So 5 times 2 gives me 10. 5 times 1 gives me 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2. And 5 times y, 5y, 5 times 7, 35. So this one here is my standard form. Now remember our criteria for standard form. X and y have to be on the same side of the equation and no decimals or fractions. All right, let's take a look at another example. Now, our last example looked at a graph. In this example, we're going to look at the wording when we're giving a description of a line, and we're going to write it again in that slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, and our standard form. So if we start with knowing that the slope is 1/3, that's what they're telling us here, and we pass through the point 4, 2, let's start with that y equals mx plus b. We already know the slope, so we'll put the 1/3 in place of the m. Now you may be thinking, well, what do I do with that 4, 2? Well, 4 here is an x value and 2 is a y value. So we're going to sub those in for x and y. In place of the y, I'll put a 2. In place of the x, I'll put a 4. And then I don't know b. I'll have to figure out what b is. So let's do that. 1/3 times 4 gives me 4/3. And now I need to get b by itself. So I'm going to have to subtract 4/3 from both sides. All right, so think of that 2 as 6/3, right? Think of 2 wholes would be 6/3. 6/3 minus 4/3 is 2/3. If you want to use your calculator, you definitely can do that. And so I know that b is 2/3. So if I come back to my equation here, I can substitute in my value for b. And there is my slope intercept form of this line. Now, let's work on the standard form. So remember, in standard form, x and y have to be on the same side. So let's start with that. The way I'm going to get x and y to be on the same side is I'm going to have to subtract this 1/3 x. All right. So I like to put it in front. So I got negative 1/3 x plus y equals, these two cancel out, giving me 2/3. Now remember, our last criteria, our second criteria, I should say, is that there are no fractions. Well, we also like the x to be positive. One of my friends likes to say, we like x to be single and positive. Okay. So we like it to have a one in, we like it to be by itself and it to be positive. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply by -3 in this equation. So I'm going to multiply everything by -3. Okay, so -3 over 1 times -1/3. Think of that. -3 times -1 is +3. 1 times 3 is 3. 3 divided by 3, that's 1. X is single and positive. All right. Now I've got -3 times y. That's -3y. And then over here, I want you to think of this one as -3 over 1 times 2/3. So -3 times 2 gives me -6. And then 1 times 3 gives me 2. Sorry, 1 times 3 gives me 3. So -6 divided by 3 gives me -2. Now, again, you can always go to your graphing calculator. In fact, I link the Desmos graphing calculator in my description for you because it's free and you can use it to help you with those fractions calculations if you need to. All right, friends, we're holding in steady with our slope intercept form. You're doing great getting to standard form. I've got one more example for us. All right, one of the most common questions we get when an equation is in standard form is, what are the y-intercepts? Because if we can find the intercepts, both the y and the x-intercept, then we can graph. So I want you to see that my equation here is in standard form. Notice x and y are on the same side, no fractions or decimals, and the x has a positive number in front of it. So let's find the x-intercept first of all. And you see I have it in blue here. When we find the x-intercept, we set the y equal to 0. That just means we replace the y with 0. So that would look something like this. So instead of 4x minus 3y, I would have 4x minus 3 times 0 equals 12. Now remember, order of operations tells me to multiply first. So 3 times 0 is 0. That makes it super easy, doesn't it? Then I've got 4x equals 12, and I can divide both sides by 4, and I get that x equals 3. Now, if that is an x-intercept, what that means is on the graph, I have a point at 3, 0. See, the x is 3, and the y, remember, is 0. So go over on your graph, and you can plot 3, 0. Let's do the same thing with the y-intercept. This time, we're going to make x 0. So instead of 4x, I'm going to have 4 times 0 minus 3y equals 12. Multiply first. 4 times 0 is 0. That leaves me with negative 3y equals 12. Then I can divide both sides by -3, and I get that y equals -4. Now this is the y-intercept. Remember, we made x 0. So we have the point 0, -4 that we can go on our graph and plot. And now we have 2 points that we can graph this line with. We found the 2 intercepts, the x-intercept and the y-intercept. And that's one of the very most common questions we get when we're working with standard form, because it's very easy to just substitute 0 for y, substitute 0 for x. All right, my friends, I hope this helps you with standard form. Remember, x and y on the same side, no decimals or fractions, and we want x to be positive. All right, I hope this helps you with your problems. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.